like that. You don't need money to live. Joe Fells, like he does everything off the grid. So
I love Joe.
he does it with no money. Seeing that type of mindset, and like our ancestors and people before us didn't even have money. We're here, so we know they had to survive somehow.
I want to be there in whatever way I can, but I've had to really dial that back and get real with myself and understand that you also need to take care of you. You also need to parent yourself, and food insecurity is one of the biggest contributors to eating disorders. We are in the top 20 of the greatest baker. Didn't think it would happen, but we are here. I hate to journal, but science says it helps, so there's that. So I created it with prompts, and it's like hydrating sucks, but I know I need you. And it has like pictures to color in of like water. So it's like different things that like someone that knows and understands the process of what you went through and trying to add their twist on it to know that like I get it, and you're so glad that I didn't do something differently, because had I done it, I don't think that I would have created Safe Sam's. I don't think I would have expanded on it, and I don't think that my life would be where it is today. I still remember having one-on-ones with my boss, and she would just look at me because she knew all the different things that I was doing, and she was like, so what is it that you want to do? Where do you see yourself? And I'm like, I don't know, I just want to do it all. With eating disorders it ties hand in hand to addictions, mental health. So who's to say we're not going to branch off into those sectors in the near future? So when I had left visiting her in the hospital, I went to the grocery store and started turning over every type of supplement that there was that they used to help others in eating disorder. All of them contained either milk and soy ingredients. So I was like, okay, I found something, like I wonder if I can create something. It took a lot for a lot of the patients to open up about their journeys and really get comfortable with me and trusting me. I wasn't really divulging like a lot of my personal life and my personal story. It was more or less like just the business story.
No one person can do everything, but everybody can do something. So welcome to Credit Chats, where we deep dive into the financial maze and uncover how everything from your daily coffee to your dream home impacts your credit score. I'm LeBaron, and thank you for joining us. Each episode will explore the ins and outs of personal finance, hear from experts, and answer your questions. So tune in, take notes, and transform your financial journey with us. Let's get started. Welcome to another Credit Chats. This is Credit Chats with LeBaron, and this is our Just Tip segment. Check your credit report regularly for errors. Even a small mistake could be dragging down your score. Fixing errors is free, and it can help you boost your score fast. So we're going to get right into Credit Chats. We have Samantha Brior here, aka Sam. She is the founder and CEO of Safe Sam's, a product line geared towards individuals in eating disorder recovery that gives back by empowering others in their recoveries with much needed items to keep them going strong in their recovery journey. She holds over a half decade of experience working in the field of mental health and is the host of her podcast, Let's Talk Healing, which I have been on, where she brings individuals of all different backgrounds together to share personal healing stories. She aims to inspire others with her non-traditional path of breaking into the field of working in mental health. So welcome, Samantha. Sam.
Thank you. So excited to be on here with you.
Yeah, thank you for accepting the invitation. And we almost started talking about what we need to talk about before we got on here. And we met on The Blocks, which is a entrepreneur boot camp that is filmed for a documentary, which is what they tell us to say. And even though we didn't connect directly at the Blocks, there was a lot of people there. We were all going to get the same information. And even though we didn't connect directly at the Blocks, there have been various times we've seen each other after the Blocks and talked more since then. And I love what you're doing. I know it's centered around cooking, and I know you're in a baking show, things like that. But our paths were really similar when we talk about having a 9-to-5, then being freed from our 9-to-5. I don't say the other word because it launches us into our destiny, which it's a roller coaster. Because like when you have that safety and security of a 9-to-5, even though you're wholesaling your gifts, you still have a steady income coming in. But tell me a little bit about that when you finally were freed from your 9-to-5.
I think it was one of those things where I had been working in this field for the corporate side of things for many years. And it's interesting because the reason why I actually got into it is because when I first started Safe Sam's, I showed up to networking events and a lot of people were very open to what I was doing. They were very excited about it. But also too, there was a lot of eyes like, so are you a dietitian? Are you a food scientist? How long have you been working in the field? And it was one of those things where I started to feel a little bit of that imposter syndrome of, okay, I know I have a good idea. I know that like my heart is in this, but if people are starting to look at me, what are you doing? Because you don't work in the field. I ultimately got that imposter syndrome of maybe I should go and work in corporate for a little bit to see how this is all laid out. So I did that for the past 6 years. So it's one of those things where it happened. I'm not upset that it happened because I think I ultimately set out what I needed to do, which was get in there, really understand what that landscape was like and really get my experience, network with others. So it was definitely a shock, but also at the same time, I just go with knowing that like I got in there, I set out what I needed to do and essentially made great connections and learned a lot along the way.
And I didn't even realize, like, when we were trying to schedule for your Let's Talk Healing podcast, you sent me a message because there was some delay in there, and you actually, the email that you sent to me was the exact email that I sent to somebody else when I had some scheduling conflict. But I didn't read all of it. I just saw I got to reschedule, had some things happen, and then when I went back and read it, because when we were talking about just being not on the 9 to 5 anymore, and I went back and read it, I was like, this is exactly what I told somebody else after I was off of my 9 to 5. And I'm just like, I'm not worried about it per se in the carnal sense of what am I going to do or a panic or anything like that. Because I know at a previous point in my life, I would have thought it was the end of the world. Having the fortitude to not think like that anymore and just doing mind work and being in an abundance mindset is like money's everywhere like that. You don't need money to live. It's just how our system is set up. I know, because just like we've seen Joe Fells, like he does everything off the grid. So
I love Joe.
he does it with no money. So even though he's very successful and he has lucrative things that bring him money, most of the things that he does are free. Seeing that type of mindset and like our ancestors and people before us didn't even have money. How did they survive? And it's like we're here, so we know they had to survive somehow. But yeah, thank you for sharing that. And I think definitely for both of us, the Almighty has delivered what we needed, what we were praying for. Because when you go over that stuff all the time, you're focusing on that thing. It's like you're praying 24/7 for the thing. And then when it happens, you're like, oh shit, it happened.
Yeah. And it's one of those things too, where I truly believe that the universe is going to remove things from your life that are not aligning and not meant to stay on your path if you don't do it yourself. Yep. So I was in the position a few years ago where I had to leave a job because of a toxic work culture. And that time in my life was very hard because it was during the Great Resignation. So myself and every other person was leaving jobs, and the search for jobs and like having to compete for interviews and callbacks, it was really stressful. So when all of this happened, my mindset was completely different. I was just like, okay, I know how this went previous. It was very stressful. I'm not going to go there in my mind. I'm just going to continue to focus on what I can, still have that positive mindset that like things are going to work out. And it has been vastly different this time around.
Right. And I think I had like training wheels of that the last time that I was looking for a position. Because the contract that I was on, because I'm in the IT field, which is completely different than what I'm doing now with credit, financial literacy and things like that. But I was looking just to stay in the same field because I gained a level of employment where it was easy for me to find a job, but difficult to find everything that checked off the boxes per se. But when I let all of the outcome go, and I was like, you know what, this is the things that I want in a job, and when it comes to me, I'll just accept it. It was like training wheels for this right here. And then this came about, and I was definitely prepared for it a little more because of going through that scenario. And of course, universe delivered what I needed at the time, and now it's delivering what I needed this time.
Absolutely.
And let's get into Safe Sam's. What inspired you to create Safe Sam's, and what was the particular moment or experience that led you to turn this passion into a business?
Safe Sam's essentially started because one of my best friends who I went to treatment with in the beginning, few years forward, she had relapsed. I went to go visit her and she wasn't doing good. She was having a really hard time eating. So I, at the time, was vegan. And the only thing that I kept on thinking in my mind was, if I were in her position, what would someone like me do? Like, what options were there? So when I had left visiting her in the hospital, I went to the grocery store and started turning over every type of supplement that there was that they use to help others in eating disorder recovery if they choose to not eat their food. And all of them contained either milk and soy ingredients. So I was like, okay, I found something. Like, I wonder if I can create something. And with me being vegan for as long as I was able to figure out essentially, okay, what can I possibly put together as far as different ingredients go? When you leave eating disorder treatment, you are given what's called the diabetic exchange list. And basically what it is, it's just a list of foods from different categories, say like your carbohydrates, your fruits, your proteins, your vegetables, all to fit within a meal plan. So I ended up sitting that in front of me and picking out different things from each food group and combining it together to see if I could put something together that didn't taste horrible.
Right.
Once I finally got the recipe right, it came down to manufacturing it and putting it all together. So because the bars had no preservatives in them, the snack bars that I formulated, because they had no preservatives in them, they needed to be frozen, which meant they needed to ship on dry ice, which can be extremely costly. So when all came said and done for all of it to be manufactured, shipped out, the bars were priced at $35 for 2 boxes. Now, the thing of it is, if it's good quality, I understand people will pay for it. Like I myself, if I like a good protein bar, I have no problem dropping $30 on a box of 12. However, I am from a smaller middle-class town where I looked at that as that's expensive and I wanted these to be affordable and accessible. So I was like, what do I do? And then it dawned on me like, why don't I just share the recipes? I'll put it in an ebook. I'll make it rhyme just to do something like catchy with it. And that way anybody can make them. It's right there. And I told the story of like how I ended up formulating them, put all the recipes in the book, and then published it into an ebook. And that at the time was when I decided I'm going to go work for corporate. So Safe Sam's got put on hold for a little bit. So started getting my feet wet working in the corporate field. And as I was running support groups, I was learning from other individuals like, okay, I have this medical bill coming in and it's so expensive, like I just can't afford it. Or other patients were talking about working with their dietitians and they needed to follow new things on their meal plan and they didn't have the access to be able to do it due to financial constraints. So I'm just sitting there and I'm like, this is breaking my heart. Like I want to do something about it. How can I help? So I started thinking back to Safe Sam's and I'm like, okay, I have the ebooks, but can I add to the product lines? I was like, maybe if I create products that a portion of the sales can go towards this, like I can have something. And it just took off from there. Like one of the products that I do have on there is a lip balm and lip scrub. And that was like the hats off to the college degree that I was not using because my background is in skincare and I wanted to tie something in there that's, no, I still got it. So I put something having to do with skincare in there. And the other products that I created, it was just mostly anybody at any age can use. Journals, coloring books, blankets, lip stuff. Like I really just tried to make it as gender neutral as possible and that every age could use it.
And the journals and coloring books, they're available where?
They are available on my website, but you buy them off of Amazon.
Okay. All right. And what's the name of one of them or your page that's on Amazon?
So the page that's on Amazon, it's under Safe Sam's, but the journal is called I Hate to Journal, but science says it helps. So there's that because I hate to journal. When people tell me to journal, I hate it. And so I created it with prompts. It just basically has, what are some things that I can do to help me feel better this week? What's something that I'm proud of? Is there somebody that can help me keep accountable this week? So it's just very short writing prompts. I did it like as a bi-weekly check-in. And then the coloring book is just prompts that guide you through. So during the recovery process, things could be very tough for people that are having to go through that. I have a page in there because nobody wants to drink fluids. And it's like, hydrating sucks, but I know I need to. And it has like pictures to color in of like water. So it's like different things that like someone that knows and understands the process of what you went through and trying to add their twist on it to know that like, I get it and you'll make it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks. And I'll put a picture of your books up.
Awesome.
Post-production and all that stuff. But yeah, that's awesome. And it seems like again, our paths are similar because I have an accounting degree, which has nothing to do with IT. And now I'm back into the space where I'm using accounting per se, not completely, but the financial literacy thing, like you use concepts that you get from accounting to be in the financial literacy, not necessarily in the credit space, but there are different things that you learn from that. Same thing here. Hats off to my degree that I wasn't using for probably about 20 years now. And then back in the space of using that, like you never know what kind of twists and turns get you to where you're supposed to be or the path that you've chosen. So you also have a background in mental health, and that clearly drives your work with Safe Sam's, because you touched on that a little bit. But how has that experience shape the mission and values of the company?
I really think that being more vulnerable, being in the space of mental health and really being on the side of leading support groups and being the supporter for everyone else, it took a lot for a lot of the patients to open up about their journeys and really get comfortable with me and trusting me. So I think for a long time, I was just more about the business side of Safe Sam's. I wasn't really divulging like a lot of my personal life and my personal story. It was more or less like just the business story. So having that experience, I think that was a catalyst to make me more comfortable to lead into my personal experiences and my personal life. So I think that being around others that were vulnerable to share their experiences, that opened the doors for me to be like, okay, if I am them, essentially, like I understand exactly what they're going through, then I can absolutely share my life and like what I've gone through and be more vulnerable and transparent with all of that too. So I think having that knowing of just being able to be more open.
Right. And that makes us better entrepreneurs too, if we can put ourselves in our clients or other people's shoes that are looking at us or looking to us for any sort of help. And that really helps me as well when it comes to the credit education, because I've been down and out parts and I've been an investor. I've been probably all kinds of parts of this journey when it comes to credit. So that helps me put myself in people's shoes. And I've been there, and you can get to a better place in your credit, which ultimately leads to better mental health when you don't have that thing to worry about. And then you have guidance or even just knowing you're not alone. So that's definitely a feather in your cap for helping out the people that you're called to help. And you broke into mental health in a non-traditional way. And can you share some of the challenges you face? And I know you talked about some of it when it comes to the Safe Sam's and the bars, and that was non-traditional as well. But touch on the mental health part of it too.
Yeah. So when I first started working in the field of eating disorders, I went to college prior, but never finished. Right. So when I first got hired, I took an entry-level position. I was working alongside with admissions and nursing. And as I was doing it, I was like, okay, like I want to work on finishing school, and had that psychology background that I was working towards, psychology and sociology. But people kept on telling me like, okay, so I almost felt that pressure of, so what are you going to do? Are you going to be a dietitian? Are you going to be a therapist? Do you want to be a psychiatrist? And it was like, I don't know. Yeah. I really don't know. And I entertained going the dietitian route, but then something shifted and I was just like, I don't want to do this. So I think really creating these snack bars getting a foot in the door and then not necessarily following the path of, okay, I'm going to be a therapist, I'm going to be a dietitian, I'm going to be a psychiatrist. I just wanted to finish my degree and see what happened. And from there, I was able to work up. So like I worked in case management and then did facility management and then started working with alumni, really not knowing where I wanted to end up, but just know that I wanted to help others throughout their recovery. Mm-hmm. I wanted to help their families with any questions that they were facing, their family members. And it really just all stemmed from wanting to help and give back. And that's the thing. I think a lot of people get scared with not necessarily knowing what they want to do, but like having an idea. And I think that just that idea alone was like what guided me. And I definitely don't think that I took the traditional path in like getting into it, but I'm so glad that I didn't do something differently, because had I done it, I don't think that I would have created Safe Sam's. I don't think I would have expanded on it. And I don't think that my life would be where it is today had I strayed off and done something different. But it's really hard to quiet that chatter when you're constantly getting it from all different areas of like, where do you want to go next? What do you want to do? What is your, like, I still remember having one-on-ones with my boss, and she would just look at me because she knew all the different things that I was doing. And she was like, so what is it that you want to do? Where do you see yourself? And I'm like, I don't know. I just want to do it all. And that's good enough for me. Like, I just want to do a bunch of different things, and that's okay.
Yeah. And again, I'm pretty sure people are going to get tired of me saying this, but that kind of parallels what I went through as well, non-traditionally, because when I got into the credit part of it, it was to replace income, because you can make a lot of money fixing people's credit. But when I really took a step back and looked at what was needed versus what was being done, I saw that there was a gap between the education part of it and the doing and making money. Yes, you can make a lot of money doing this for people, and they'll come back to you repeatedly because their habits don't change. So that's not what I wanted to be in this space. And everybody's looking at you in this space. Okay, how much money have you made? Because I know a lot of people that do this that make a whole boatload of money. And that's not my aim. I'm not looking to get rich off of these people, even though, yes, if I help enough people, I know that'll be a byproduct. But that's not my aim. My aim is to make sure these people are better for what they're doing now, and they understand this, and they can move the trajectory of their family forward after they know this information. Because I don't want them to eat a fish that I gave them. I want them to be able to fish.
Yeah. That's awesome. I love that.
Thank you. You are dedicated to empowering individuals as well, and in their recovery journey. Can you talk about your impact? Can you talk about the impact of your products and how they've had their impact on these people and how that fuels your passion?
Yeah, absolutely. With a couple of clients, we've had they wanted to expand on their meal plans, and to be able to let them know, hey, you don't need to stand in line at the food bank for the next 4 weeks because you have a grocery card that you can go buy groceries with. That's meant the world to be able to do that, to be able to give someone a mobility aid so that they can get around at work a little bit easier. And also for the burden of a medical bill that we were able to take care of for somebody that was just like a stressful situation, especially at a time where there was a lot going on for them. We've been able to give back to a campaign called Hunger Free Summer, which helps with food insecurity for kids in the summertime because of not being at school and not receiving school lunches. And food insecurity is one of the biggest contributors to eating disorders, and it happens so often, and not a lot of people are knowing about it or talking about it. And so being able to give back in those ways, it makes me realize that this has such a bigger impact than just what I was doing previously. And I know that it's touching a lot of people and helping a lot of people in a lot of big ways. And it's not a massive thing, but every little bit counts. And the more that I can do, the prouder I feel about it. And I'm just very thankful for the things that I have been able to do with it thus far.
Yeah, I would beg to differ that it is a massive thing to the people that you're helping. So no one person can do everything, but everybody can do something. So the people that you're impacting, they feel it. And not to try to diminish or anything that you're doing. It's great work. So thank you for helping those people. And I'm sure they have expressed their thanks to you too. But launching a product line in the mental health space has its unique challenges. And
it does.
What financial or strategic steps did you take to make Safe Sam's both sustainable and impactful?
So I think on the financial side of it, it's hard because being from like a smaller middle class town, I always wanted to make things affordable. But in turn, if the product is doing something such as giving back, I had to be strategic about that and know that, hey, it's okay to increase that price point because this is what it's going towards. And also too, being able to look at it from a standpoint of with all of my products, I wanted to do them on Amazon just because it's a trusted source. Right. And with doing like the Amazon FBA route, yes, there is a higher price point that gets taken away from the product through going that route. However, I look at it as I'm investing in customer service. I'm investing in shipping and logistics. Like I look at it as that is a good investment in that end because I do not have to necessarily take care of all of that. All of that is taken care of on that end. So I think being strategic in what I was pricing it at, but also knowing like what I was getting in turn was something that I took into account. And then also too, with trying to make products that can fit the bill for everyone. Like I still remember sitting down with the product company that I was working with for the lip care. And I was just designing it. I'm like, these need to be neutral colors. Like I don't want any, like it needs to be gender neutral. It can't have like pinks and all these different things. Like everybody needs to look at it, whatever gender, whatever age you are, like you can have it and it doesn't just appeal to one person. Right. The same thing with the other products too. So there was a lot of psychology that got factored into like, how do I design it? How do I market it? And like, how do I, present it and essentially get it to people? And I think with Amazon just being such a trusted source, it was just a no-brainer to pair up with them to be able to offer it just because so many people have the efficiency of Prime. And it's just, it was a win in my experience with working with them.
Good. Yeah, that is paramount. Like, making sure people see themselves in the product so they can adopt it. And that's really big. But was there a particular turning point where you saw Safe Sam's really take off? And how did that shift your mindset about what was possible for you and the company?
I think I really started to see it take off when I knew it was a good idea. When I started shifting it into a product line. But I think once I started to share what it was and the bigger impact that it had, and when people really got a chance to see what it was and hold it and experience it, getting that feedback was everything. And, I still remember when I was on the blocks and everybody's going in there. We're all nervous. Like we don't know what to expect. We're all going up against each other in pods. And I think to have such successful mentors and judges that are looking at what you're doing and looking at how you're presenting it and then giving you the feedback of, I really like what you're doing and I like your process. That was when I was like, aha, okay, like I'm on to something. Like this wasn't just like, hey, I'm going to shoot like a dart at the board and hope it sticks. It's no, okay. To have that validation and feedback, I think that's when I really started to really get that confidence and know that, okay, we're going for it.
Yeah. And it takes various times of that for you to keep going because being an entrepreneur is lonely. And when you have other entrepreneurs, like when we got in that space, it was like a family reunion kind of thing because everybody knew the struggles that we all had. And then when you have other people validating not only your experience, but your products too. And then those people that are multimillionaires or the judges and people that are in the pods that have also been successful, and you have a well thought out plan. You may not have thought it was a well thought out plan when you started, but when you got there, you're like, yeah, I did take a whole lot of time. There were a lot of iterations in this. And I I've done this because of this, and here's my why. And you realize it was a meticulous process for you to get to where you are now, but it just didn't look like what you thought it was going to look like. And then when you get there and then you go back and you look and you can help other people that are looking to get into that space or looking to be entrepreneurs, we can give people all kinds of advice now on being entrepreneurs because we've been there. And even though we might not be able to give them like, okay, when you get to be a billionaire, you're going to have to change your towels because your skin doesn't do low thread counts anymore. We haven't gotten there yet, but we can give them the entrepreneur talk and say, look, it's lonely, but it's worth it. So looking back, what advice would you give someone who is passionate about mental health, but unsure how to start the business in the space?
I would say that a lot of the times, from what I know and what I've experienced, a lot of people get into the field of mental health because it has impacted them in some way, shape, or form, whether it be themselves, a family member, a loved one, what have you. And the thing of it is you don't need to have X, Y, and Z credentials. You don't need to have a business background. You are getting into it essentially because you want to help. And you know what you've been through, and let that experience drive you no matter what, because that is what essentially drove me, is my process that I went through, and then also my best friends. And I just hit the ground running because I knew, because I lived it, I experienced it, and that was enough. And I can't reiterate that enough, because I think a lot of people do feel like they need more behind their background to jump into it and get into it. And it's, as long as you have that lived experience, as long as you know what that process is like, you're going to be able to connect with somebody else who's been through it, and they're going to get it, and they're going to see that passion that you are wanting to help, and just let that be the driving force.
Yeah. And we learned this at the blocks too. The market will tell you what it needs. And for us, when we get into the imposter syndrome, if you combat that with an abundance mindset, to say there are billions of ways to get into an industry doing something that I love to do. Because if you take a basketball player, and if you didn't make it to the NBA, WNBA, there are basketball manufacturers, there are shoe manufacturers, there are analysts, there's a bunch of ways that you could still be in the basketball space. You can teach, you can be a coach, whatever it is. There's a bunch of ways for you to get in the basketball space and still do what you love in the space that you love to do it in, if you don't box yourself into the traditional ways of getting in there. So if you look at what you have to offer and what the market needs, then you're going to find something that you can fill the gap of doing. And it just takes you having that mindset to, I'm going to make it in here. And no matter what it is, I'm going to do something that I love to do.
Yeah.
So what are your long-term goals for Safe Sam's, and how do you envision expanding the reach and impact?
So my long-term goals, I think, are to expand the product line and kind of shift in a bit of a different way. There is something that I have coming out very shortly in regards to Safe Sam's that I'm very excited to get into. And it is the topic of eating disorders and psychedelics. And this is something that I have been extremely passionate about for many years and just was not able to fully come out and speak about. And now it's finally time. So we're going to touch more on that. And also too, I feel like just forming partnerships with nonprofits, really just, I'm open to a lot of different things with it. Really, right now we're a product line and we do coaching, but also too, the sky's the limit as far as what we do. And the thing with eating disorders is it ties hand in hand to addictions, mental health. So who's to say we're not going to branch off into those sectors in the near future? Right. So I think really there's no cap on the limit, and I'm excited to see where all of it goes in the future. And as far as my plans to expand and bring in more clients, I think the more authentic and the more real that I can be, I think that is what's going to drive in a lot more traffic and really be able to connect with others in a big way. And also too, I just think adding some more creativity into it. I've dabbled in a little bit, but I think I can add more creativity to the mix. And I want to start to have more fun in the creative sense of it too.
Good, good. Yeah, you could always use more cowbell. So,
Yes.
as the founder of Let's Talk Healing, how do you, and I've been on there, and like I said, you're easy to talk to. It was honestly very fluid when we were talking. And when you talk to people about past trauma, and then when we got into this too, but trauma, you can do one of two things with the trauma. And like you're doing, like I'm doing, you could either shrink and try to find out why this happened to you, or you can help other people getting through it. With Let's Talk, how do you balance your personal healing journey with your professional commitments?
So I think I have had to learn a lot over the past few years, just because I have always been the one to step up for everybody else. And we're talking mental health. I feel like a lot of professions during the holidays, it dies down. Mental health, it shoots up. So I'm holidays included. I felt been the person that people need to go to, and I need to constantly be on call. And it was really hard to be able to carve out that time for me. And I think just the giver in me, the empath in me, like I want to be there for people. I want to be there in whatever way I can. But I've had to really dial that back and get real with myself and understand that you also need to take care of you. You also need to parent yourself. And so I think I've gotten a lot better with being a little bit more relaxed in my schedule, really taking the time out to do things for me within reason before I schedule my day or be very particular about how I'm setting things up. I'm really putting myself first before a lot of other obligations. And then also too, really aligning with what feels right to me as far as opportunities, as far as meetings. There may be something that pops up that it sounds great, but it's more or less me understanding I don't need to do everything. I don't need to be everything to everyone. And if that doesn't sound the greatest, then I'm going to turn it down. So I really think having to learn to be the parent to myself, that's been a challenge for me. I'm still a work in progress. I'm still evolving every single day, but I think that has been really good for me to balance the two out. And honestly, having to set boundaries is not the easiest thing to do, especially if it's something that you weren't necessarily taught at a young age, and having to learn it later on in life is really hard, but it's essential. And being able to say no, stick up for yourself, really transformative things that I've had to learn along the way, and it's helped a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because the first point, if you're not okay, you can't be okay for anybody else. And
absolutely.
And then the second one, like when you're not, and we touched on this as well, when you're not good at setting boundaries, there might be an unhealed younger version of you that you revert to every time something traumatic happens that looks like what you were going through before. So getting practice with that, setting boundaries and making sure you prioritize yourself is something that you need to practice, and you're going to get better when you keep doing it, and it's going to be better for you mentally, physically, all the things. Thank you, Samantha. How do people find you if they want to find you?
So I would suggest going to savesams.com, because right up at the top, there's my link tree and basically anything that you want to find. If you want to find the products, if you want to find TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, all the different things, it's right up there, right at the front. So savesams.com. And also I'm going to use this opportunity to say, we are in the top 20 of the greatest baker. Didn't think it would happen, but we are here. So if you like what we're doing and you want to see us advance, I think this is an amazing opportunity to get some spotlight attention on eating disorder recovery and eating disorder awareness in a way bigger way. So if you would like to vote for us, very much appreciate it.
Vote for Sam. Thank you, Sam. It's been exhilarating. Another great conversation. We had a great one on your podcast, Let's Talk Healing, and that is available on Spotify. Yeah, there we go. Yes. Spotify. It's available on Spotify, and it's got a red background. It's got the beautiful picture of Sam, and you can go see all of her episodes, interviews, and things like that on Spotify. Check her out. She's doing great work. And again, thank you, Sam, for being on Credit Chats.
Thank you so much.
Whoa. Were you about to leave without hitting that like and subscribe button? I mean, you'll be back, right? So why not save yourself the hassle and just do it now? It's like putting your keys by the door, or packing your lunch, or packing 3 days before your flight and not the night of. It just makes life easier. Oh wait, did you just do it? I knew you had it in you. I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
See you next time.
I want to be there in whatever
Same
way
place,
I can,
same
but
channel.
I've had
And remember,
to really dial
everything
that back
you
and get
need
real with
is
myself
inside
and
of you.
understand that you also need to take care of you. You also need to parent yourself. And so I think I've gotten a lot better with being a little bit more relaxed in my schedule, really taking the time out to do things for me within reason before I schedule my day or be very particular about how I'm setting things up. I'm really putting myself first before a lot of other obligations, and then also too, really aligning with what feels right to me as far as opportunities, as far as meetings. There may be something that pops up that it sounds great, but it's more or less me understanding I don't need to do everything. I don't need to be everything to everyone, and if that doesn't sound the greatest, then I'm gonna turn it down. So I really think having to learn to be the parent to myself, that's been a challenge for me. I'm still a work in progress.